There's a dance that's in your children. You've given us the rhythm. Now we're stirring up the heavens. Bring the rain.
So I'm really excited, a little bit more. Yeah. So I'm really excited this morning because we're going to be thinking about the road to Macedonia. And it's tied in unintentionally, actually, because it's tied in really well. It's been on my heart for a few weeks, but Tiva at this morning is preaching in Macedonia. How cool is that? Yeah, and he's actually preaching through a translator, and when I shared with someone about that, they said, who's going to be translating for me this morning? But I'm bilingual, so you're okay. Yeah, I'm really excited. If you've got your Bibles, if you haven't, why not? Okay. If you've got your Bibles or your iPhones, whatever you've got, turn with me to Acts chapter 16, verse 12 and 14. And we're going to read a few verses of what happens to Paul when he reaches the end of his journey to Macedonia. And it's really exciting. Actually, what we're going to read about is the first convert to Christianity in Europe. So really, really cool. And so we read Acts 16, verse 12 to 14. From there we travel, that's Paul and his mates, traveled to Philippi, a Roman colony and the leading city in the district of Macedonia, and we stayed there for several days. Now on the Sabbath, we went outside the city gates to the river, where we expected to find a place of prayer. And we sat down and we began to speak to the women who had gathered there. One of them was a woman named Lydia, and she was a dealer of purple cloth. And she was a worshipper of God. And I love this verse. The Lord opened her heart to respond to Paul's message. Hey, let's just pray. God, simple prayer this morning, Lord, which only you can do. Open our hearts. Open our hearts, Lord. We need to hear from you. Amen. And so for Paul, his journey to Macedonia, it starts in a place called Antioch. Now, Antioch was about 300 miles north of Jerusalem. And it was a trading town, quite a major place on the road north from Jerusalem. And Antioch was a wonderful place, because it was a place that was just steeped in actually the start of the Great Commission for Paul. Now, if you've been to church a few times, you've maybe heard this phrase, Great Commission. Now, the Great Commission is a very interesting phrase. It's not mentioned in the Bible, apart from the headings. Jesus doesn't actually say the Great Commission. But nevertheless, it is a Great Commission. It is a Great Commission because of who said it. It's a Great Commission because of what it involves. It's a Great Commission because of when Jesus actually left it to his disciples. And we read about the Great Commission in Matthew chapter 28, when he says, all authority has been given to me in heaven and earth. Therefore, go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them of everything, to obey everything that I've taught you. And surely I'm going to be with you to the end of the age. Now, that is a massive ask. That is a massive ask, guys. And he left it, it was one of the last instructions that he leaves his disciples, who had spent 3 years with. Now, last instructions are really important. I forget tons of stuff that my wife tells me. So you guys all do the same, don't you? So she always tells me the last thing, the most important thing last. And that's what Jesus was doing. You've got to go, guys. I'm giving you a massive ask. Now, and it kicks off really fast, because 50 days after Jesus was crucified, God sends his Holy Spirit. And then it empowers people. And it empowers people, and people's lives are changed. And one of the guys' lives that was emboldened was a guy called Peter. He was a fisherman. He was a guy who had denied Jesus in his time of his greatest need. But he was empowered. And so he stood up and preached. And he was preached with power and boldness, and 3,000 people entered into the kingdom. That's incredible. And then a few weeks after that, many more thousands. And so it kicked off at an incredible pace. And the church in Jerusalem, it just exploded onto the scene, this church. We had a few disciples were hiding in a room. Now there was this massive church in Jerusalem. It just exploded on the scene. Really exciting times. But the thing is that when I was reading about this story in Acts, the thing that surprised me is what happened after that. It kind of stalls. They kind of take their foot off the accelerator. It kind of stalls. And so, yeah, we hear like odd kind of things like Philip kind of telling the gospel to the Ethiopian dude, and then we hear about another guy going up, Stephen preaching the gospel, and he got killed in persecution, and we hear about someone going to Samaria, which is about 50, 60 miles north of Jerusalem. But the gospel kind of stalls. And it's not until about 9 or 10 years after that this explosion of the church, and it really surprised me. I had to read it many times, and it wasn't until about maybe 9 or 10 years after the church exploded in Jerusalem that the church in Jerusalem sends this guy, one of their head guys, Barnabas, son of encouragement, up to Antioch just to check it out, because they'd been hearing that people would be getting saved there. It kind of surprised me. Why did it take so long? What was Peter doing? Was he just consume the church? Why so much disciples in one place? Many disciples in one place? What were they thinking? It was a great commission. It was the greatest thing they could ever do. And for some reason, I don't know what, the Bible doesn't tell us what happened. It might have been all good stuff. But regardless, the Great Commission was it was stalled. And that really challenged me. Because, Antioch, regardless of what happened in Jerusalem, Antioch was now thriving. You see, and it kind of spoke to me, the Great Commission that God has left for all of us here, it's not going to wait for us. We have a privilege to be involved in the Great Commission. But God's not going to wait for us, guys. And so for Antioch, whatever happened in Jerusalem, the church in Antioch was thriving now. It was growing. It was a wonderful church. Actually, it's where where the believers were first called Christians. It was a fantastic church. But when it comes to the Great Commission, the measure of a truly great church is not how much it's thriving, not how many people can sit here, it's how much people it sends. That's a measure of a great church. Your sending capacity. And I love it. We come, this is a great area for Christianity. It is steeped in history. I was down to the cathedral in Truro. I can't really say Truro right, but I was down to the cathedral in Truro, and there was a stained glass window of a guy called Henry Martin. Who's ever heard of Henry Martin? Yeah, he's a great guy. You need to learn about Henry Martin. He was a missionary pioneer in the 1700s. Actually, one of the first guys to translate the Bible, the New Testament, into Persian and Urdu, which is up in Afghanistan all the way down to Iran. He was a fantastic guy, a real pioneer. Sadly, he died on his missionary journey through Iran. He became very sick and he died at 31 years old. Tragic story. But he was a real pioneer for the gospel, a real pioneer for the Great Commission. And I love what he said, I love his insight. He says the Spirit of Christ is a spirit of missions. The Spirit of Christ is a spirit of missions. And the nearer you get to him, the more intensely missionary we're going to become. And that's so true. Because, you know, it's so true. It's saying, as we spend time with God, and as we draw near to God in prayer, God changes our hearts. And we get filled with love for other people. And when you get filled with other people, you've got to tell them. You've got to go. That's why Paul wrote, it says, how can they believe if they've never heard? And he goes down, how can they hear if someone doesn't tell them? How can someone tell them unless someone goes? That was Paul's heart. That was Paul's heart. You know, I've got to tell them. I love it. And I was thinking about that. How many times have we been praying for something that's been on our minds, whether it's someone, or whether it's a social issue, or whether it's a country, and you've been saying, God, you've got to do something. And what does God say to you? You do something. Every time. You do something. You go. You do it. And I love that because, you know, that echoes in the footsteps of some really fantastic missionary organizations and movements in this world. And one of them was, you've heard us speak about before, you know, we love, they inspire me. And it's it's in the 1700s, a group of Christians called the Moravians. You've heard Tiva speak about them as well. You need to research the Moravians. They were a small group, a small Christian community in the eastern part of Germany that were persecuted. And it drove them to prayer. Actually started up a prayer meeting that lasted a 24-hour prayer meeting that lasted 100 years. Man, I can't pray for half an hour and I fall asleep. But these dudes were serious, you know, they were so consumed. But you know what came out of that 100-year prayer meeting? They sent missionaries. The first large-scale missionary movement in the world. It's incredible. Over the next 30 years, they sent, you know how many missionaries they sent out? Over 30 years, 250 missionaries. That is incredible. To places that they had never heard the gospel before. And I was thinking, man, I wish I was there. I wish I was back in that kind of age. But you know, and I was really challenged. These are not fairy stories to make us feel good or make us feel bad. These are examples, guys. These are examples for us all. I was thinking, how can we match the Moravians? How can we go up to the standard of Moravians? And then I did a little bit of counting, and I like counting. I like calculators and stuff like that. And I did a little bit of counting. You know how many missionaries they sent out? They sent out 1 in 60. For every 60 Moravians, they sent out one missionary. 240 people here. Who's good at maths? How many missionaries is that? 4? Yeah, well done, Debs. So, 4 missionaries. The Moravians were not that incredible. For us, it's attainable. Now, whenever I think about sending out 4 missionaries, I'm thinking, well, 4 times, that's a lot of money we've got to kind of raise for missionaries. Yeah? Missionaries are expensive, dudes. Yeah, they are nowadays, but not back then. Because they sent them out as farmers. They sent them out they sent us out as fishermen, businessmen, carpenters, teachers. And the idea was that they supported themselves, just like Paul with his tent making. And if they couldn't support themselves, then the church back home would top them up. I love that. You know, we speak about, traditional missionary. This is the traditional missionary model. To send people out with skills. Now, practically, let's keep it real. In Laos, where I work, you can totally support yourself as an English teacher. We can all speak English here, can't we? You can all speak English here. Right? That was new. I like it. But we can support ourselves. Yeah, you might not afford afford the air ticket back. That doesn't matter. But you can totally support yourself as an English teacher all over the world. You know, we speak about closed countries. There's no closed countries for the gospel. I love this thing about creative access countries. The most closed country is wide open for business people and teachers now. Wide open. Even North Korea. I was invited to North Korea last year to start a business. Wide open. Didn't do it, didn't know why. Anyway, but honestly, it's wide open. So I love it. So then Paul leaves, so it was a place of commission in Antioch, and then Paul leaves Antioch and he heads into Turkey up to a place called Lystra. Now Lystra was a place of connection. Paul had been there the year before. He'd actually went there with his mate Barnabas. They'd healed a crippled man. And so they'd healed this crippled man, and the people says, "Oh man, you must be gods, you've healed people." So they called them Zeus and Hermes. It's pretty cool names. So they called them, they says, "You must be Greek gods." And they thought, "That's a great chance. We're going to use this opportunity to preach the gospel." So they're giving it all they can go. The people didn't like that, so they stoned them. Threw them out. And here's a year after, Paul's coming back to Lystra again. Now, he's probably thinking, "I'm not going to make the same mistake as the last time." They threw stones at it last time. And so he goes into Lystra and he finds there's this young guy called Timothy. And Timothy's his protege, and he wants to come with Paul in his travels. And so he goes with Paul in his travels, and before he goes with Paul in his travels, Paul's thinking, "Well, your father's Greek, but your mother's Jewish. This could cause a problem here." So he takes literally eye-watering in action and circumcises Timothy. I'm not sure if I can be a Timothy, to be honest. But he does that. And what Paul was doing is, he was trying to... Hey, this fires me up, guys. So I want to share you. I don't want to just say about we need to go on missions without kind of explaining some of the things we're going to face. So what Paul's trying to do is he's trying to contextualize the gospel. He's trying to contextualize the gospel. Now, contextualization is a technical term of being able to share the gospel culturally sensitively. Or sensitively culture. You know what I'm at. Okay? And so he's trying to do that. But to contextualize the gospel, man, that is a tightrope. We need to be really careful when we're trying to contextualize the gospel, because as you're going along this tightrope, you can easily fall into compromise. And compromise is when you absorb and you water down your own testimony. Or if you're going along this tightrope and just trying to contextualize the gospel, you can easily go to the other side and go into what they call synchronism. And synchronism is not when you absorb values, it's when you absorb culture and tradition and all that kind of stuff. And that's a really dangerous thing, because it waters down the gospel. And it's very interesting when this happened, because just a couple of years beforehand, there was some dudes going about the churches, the new churches, and they were saying, if you're a Gentile, us guys, if you're a Gentile and you are a follower, if you want to become saved, you've got to follow the traditions of Moses, and you've got to be circumcised. That's what they were saying. And so for Paul, and actually it was Paul that brought the message back from this council of Jerusalem, which was called to sort it out. And the council of Jerusalem says, "Hey, that's a heap of nonsense. We're saved by faith through grace alone. The only thing I want you to do to keep peace is don't eat any food that's offered to idols. Don't eat haggis, blood from strangled animals. And don't commit sexual immorality." That's only three things. It's just that's nonsense. But here was Paul, just a year or maybe a couple of years after that, and he's taking Timothy and he's circumcising him. So he is, man, there's some people probably wouldn't have agreed with what Paul was doing. But he was so focused on getting connected, contextualizing the gospel, to share the gospel. And you get an insight of what Paul is thinking when he says, in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, he says, look, hey, look guys, this is what I'm thinking. To the Jews, I'm going to become a Jew, that I might win the Jews. To the weak, I'm going to become weak, that I might win the weak. I'm going to be all things. What does it say? So my eyes is terrible. He said, I'm going to be all things. I can't read that. Is that true? Yes. So he's going to do that. Right? He's going to do that because to get the gospel to someone. Now, I was thinking, when have I experienced that? And I was thinking, maybe about 6 months ago, I was in Laos. And we trekked up to this village. And never heard the gospel before. Really poor village. Captain Caveman village. No electric, grass huts, all that kind of stuff. We stood up there. We stayed with this farm. They killed a pig, sat around the fire at night, just speaking, all that kind of stuff. And towards the end of the night, I'm thinking, how do you share the gospel with these people? Never heard. And they came out with a thread. And they said, we want to bless you. Now, thread tying in Southeast Asia, it's kind of steeped in Buddhism. I don't want to kind of go into that stuff, but I'm thinking, man, there's no way they're tying that thread around my wrist. No way, Jose. I'm thinking, how can I reach them? And I was thinking, Lord, what am I going to do? I was in sweat. And I felt the Lord saying to me, Andrew, I made the coating. It's just a piece of cotton. It's a tightrope, eh? So I says, this is going to bless you. This is a family that were not Buddhist. This is a family that were just being polite culturally. And so they tied it around and says, hey, welcome to your house. They were just being polite. But it opened the door. Because after that, I felt the Lord say to me, it's your chance to bless them now. So I says, hey, can I have one of these threads? Yeah. I said, can I bless your family? Yeah. Would like that. You know I'm a follower of Jesus? Yeah. The odds are sure of that bit. But I thought, man, I'm going to go. They've opened the door.
Come on.
So I just tied it around that peace would come flooding at this village. Hey, guys, contextualization, sharing the gospel, it's a tightrope. Not just overseas, but also in your local community. What do? Do I go down? Hey, I've tried to. Jesus said this. He says, even Jesus had flocked. Hey, there's going to be some times in your life when you want to share the gospel and you're going to try and connect with people, and it doesn't matter what you do, you will not please everyone. You will get flack. Even Jesus got flack. Jesus says, hey, when John the Baptist came neither eating or drinking, everyone says he's got a demon. I come eating and drinking, and he says, you say I'm a drunk and a glutton. Even Jesus couldn't win. But it's a tightrope. You've got to be careful. Do not compromise. I've slipped with that. I remember as a young guy, I was sharing the gospel with my friends and thinking, well, they're all at pubs, so I'll just go to the pub, I'll just have a Pepsi. Next week there's a beer. Then 2-3 months it was like a zigzagging away home. Compromise. It's not good, guys. But yet we've got to walk that road. You see, the challenge for you and me, guys, the challenge for you and me is we need to be flexible with the things that we can be flexible with. But we need to be firm on the foundations of the faith. Don't get hung up with how you do cultural Christianity. But when it comes to the foundations of the faith, we have to be steady on that things. They're immovable. The problem sometimes is, I heard one pastor say this, we get the opposite way around. We get all firm on how we do church. Hey, we've got to sing like this, there's got to be a ham sandwich, all that kind of stuff, Hey, I'll be honest, in another 30 years, I might not like this church. Because it's maybe changed. I may be a grumpy old guy. We won't like that as church. But we need to be, as long as it's firm on the foundations, as long as it's culturally relative. That's the important thing. Because we need to connect with people. And so Paul leaves Antioch commissioned. And then he goes from Antioch to Lystra, where he connects with people. And then he travels, and for some reason, I don't know why, it says that the Spirit didn't allow him to share the gospel. Now, I don't know why he wasn't allowed to share the gospel, but he wasn't allowed to share the gospel. And then he comes to Troas. Now, Troas was a place of calling. It says this about Troas. It says, during the night, Paul had a vision of a man of Macedonia standing and just begging him, hey, come over to Macedonia and help us. And Paul concluded that God was calling them over there to preach the gospel. And then he goes on a little boat and he crosses over to Europe. Now, I just want to share two little things about the calling. About this story that really spoke to me. And the first thing is, you could have the best missionology. You could have the best community outreach program you can design. You could be a part of the wonderful church planting movement. But if the Lord doesn't go before you and make a way, it means nothing. Nothing. That's why it says in the Bible, unless the Lord builds the house, what does the labourers do? Waste their time, guys. And then the second thing is that sometimes, this really surprised me, because I think if I had a vision of a guy saying, go over to Camborne or somewhere, and it was a vision, I think I would kind of not have to conclude too much. But somehow, Paul gets this vision of this guy saying, come over to Macedonia, and it says he had to conclude. Now, I know many people says, God told me this. And I get that, because God does tell people that. We believe in a supernatural God. He can speak audibly to people. Did it all through the Bible. But sometimes it's a whisper in our lives. Sometimes it's that still voice in our lives that says, hey, I want you to do this. And that's just as important. I don't know what kind of voice Paul heard, but he still had to conclude, okay? And they concluded that, so maybe God's calling you and saying, hey, I want you to speak to Jimmy up the road. It might not be an audible voice, or I want you to go down and take Susan out for a coffee or whatever it is, I don't know. But maybe it's just, you don't have to hear a voice to do that. You just maybe, hey, you know the thing that's kind of guided me most in my life? I love that verse. Let the peace of God guide you. It's just like, I've got peace. Let's just do it. And so Paul leaves that, and then finally he comes across, and he comes to Philippi. Now, Philippi was his goal. First time the gospel comes to Europe. Love it. So the gospel comes to Europe, and it says that it goes on about what Paul did is, as is his custom, he goes about looking for a Jewish community in Philippi. And so he goes down there, and it says they went outside the river, outside the town to the river, and looking for a place of prayer. Apparently Philippi had such a small Jewish community that they didn't even have the 10 adults required to form a synagogue. And so, but he goes outside and he finds a group of praying women. Thank God for prayer women. Women, I honor you. You are... I go into the prayer room, always women. Really, honestly, that is a gift. And so he finds this praying woman, and he starts to share the gospel. And one of the women there was a woman called Lydia, and she was a businesswoman that sold cloth. And he shares the gospel, and I love this little phrase that it says. Spoke about it before. It says, the Lord opened her heart. And I couldn't get that out of my mind this week. The Lord opened her heart. And I kept on thinking, do you remember the time that the Lord opened my heart and your heart? And then we went to the prayer meeting, and Ian was sharing, and he prayed, and he thanked the Lord. And Steve Haig here. Steve Haig put on a really obscure, it's about so 50 years old. What was it called again? Petra. Who remembers Petra? And oh my goodness. So Petra comes on. What's it called? What was the song again? The battle belongs to the Lord. Oh, so the battle belongs to the Lord. And it kicked off Ian because it was the song that was playing when Ian became a Christian. The day that the Lord opened his heart. I love it. You know, we should never forget the day that the Lord opened my heart. Do you remember the day that the Lord opened your heart? Do you, I was sitting like Jimmy No Mates at the back of church. Church is not going to affect me. You're sitting over there where Charles is at. And the Lord just opened my heart. To know the love of God, the peace of God, and the assurance that I'm his son come flooding into your heart. The Lord opened her heart. But the interesting thing is, it says that she was a worshipper. Maybe she knew the scriptures. Maybe she loved to sing. Maybe that's you this morning. Maybe you come this morning and think, well, I'm not going to have a relationship with the Lord, but I like the singing. Hey, the Lord can open your heart. The Lord can open your heart. That's what he did. And then she got publicly baptized. And you know, none of this would have happened if Paul was ashamed of the gospel. But it says Paul was not ashamed of the gospel. That's what it says. It says, I'm not ashamed of the gospel. And when I was reading this about what about Paul, I was thinking, how many times have we been sitting next to a Lydia, or a Bob, or a John, or a Susan? I keep on saying Susan, but that's the only name I can remember. But how many times have you been sitting next to someone? And the Lord's we can open our heart and we don't share the gospel. Who's been like that? 5 of us. Yeah. Okay, 6, 7. Come on, yeah, we've all been there, haven't we? And I was thinking, why is that? Am I ashamed of the gospel? I'm not ashamed of the gospel, are you? We believe the gospel. It's good news. Why do we not share? And I was thinking, because I may be ashamed of myself. Maybe it's myself that I'm ashamed of. Maybe I would share the gospel if I was a better dad, if I was a better businessman, a better everything. I would share the gospel then. If I was like Paul, I would share the gospel. But I'm not like Paul. So I'm not going to share the gospel. And I love what Paul said. You know, Paul wasn't perfect. Paul was far from perfect. But he shared the gospel. And I love what he said. He says, because the love of Christ compelled me. That was the fuel in his tank. The love of God compelled me. You know, love will overcome every hang-up you have about yourself. Do you believe that, guys? The love of God, when it comes over your life, it just covers all the hang-ups in your life. All the mistakes, all the embarrassments, every issue, yourself, everything you think negative about yourself, it will cover up. Can we have the worship band up, please? I was reminded of that about 3 weeks ago. It was a week and Debs was that 3 weeks ago? Yeah, 4 weeks ago. Debs was sharing. It was a beautiful day. Beautiful day. I didn't really want to be in church. It was so beautiful. But it was, I'm joking. But after that, we says, let's hit the beach. So we went down to Port Reith Beach, and everyone was so excited to have a day at the beach. And I was going to get changed. It was such a hurry. I was going to get changed in my wetsuit in the car park. And for some reason, it had shrunk since last year. Because everything I put on, I was like getting bumps all over the place. I thought, you know me, this is ridiculous. I am not going down the beach like this. Can I just say, if you are a wetsuit designer, there's a gap in the market for loose-fitting wetsuits. But I thought, really, I am not going down like this. And so my wife, she got mad at me. She says, you walk down a beach like that. You can't do that. I was having none of it, okay? Threats do not work. And then Levi said to me, he died. He tried a guilt thing. He says, he died. You can go to Laos, but you're frightened to walk down the beach. It almost worked. But I was having none of it. Guilt does not work. And then I looked down at Talia, little angel she is, and she didn't say anything. She just looked up with a puppy dog face. It broke my heart. That did it. Love will overcome every issue you have. And so I sucked it in like a vegetable. Love will not only get over every issue, love will also find a way. Because just at that moment, Ross and Megan came driving in the car park. And I thought, okay, I'm going to suck it in, how do I do it? And love will find a way. So I put two surfboards each side. And I strutted down the beach. The love of God. I mean, if a love for your family will make you do that, how much more will the love of God do? And so, I wanted to share that 4 things with you. You know, guys, we are commissioned. It's a great commission. We are a great church. Let's not delay. Let's be a church like Antioch that sent people out. Let's be a church that, like the Moravians that sent out. Why not aim for the 4? Why not? We can do it. We can do it. Builders, carpenters. Teachers. We can do it. We're commissioned. Not only are we commissioned like Paul, you know, we need to be connected. And so in the community, guys, we need to be careful. Don't get yourself in a church bubble when you never meet no Christian friends. Because that's what happens. You get so consumed with church that you cut off all ties with people that don't know the Lord. And so we need to be connected, and that's a tightrope in case we fall into a compromise, or in case we kind of just take on all their values. We need to be careful with that. Not only are we commissioned and connected, but we need to listen to the whisper of the Spirit in our lives. Go and speak to so-and-so. We need to do that. And you know, most of all, don't do it because of guilt. Don't do it because you're embarrassed. Don't do it because people kind of tell you you've got to do it to be a good Christian. Share the gospel. Because the love of the Lord compels you. That is the only way that you should share the gospel. Because I'll guarantee you, from personal experiences, the lost will see through every agenda you have. But love, to love them, you can't fight against that. It will break down every barrier. It will be the fuel in your tank, guys. Amen? Amen. You know, Tiva is in Macedonia. We're speaking about Macedonia. I just really felt, you know, today, I don't normally do this, but can you stand, please? Come on. You know, I love when I watch other people at TV and they make their words of knowledge. And hey, I'm not like that. I wish I was. But there's one thing that struck me this week. That maybe there's someone who the Lord will open your heart this morning. Maybe you've been in a relationship with Him for a long, long time. Maybe it's opening a heart just to, hey, I need to get into, I need to use my life to reach other people. I don't know. Maybe it's even for the first time. And if it's for the first time, I am jealous. I am hungry. Seriously, I am greedy to lead you to the Lord this morning. And so I'm going to be standing over there. And if that's you, you come and see me, please. I beg you. if you need to rededicate your life, if you need some other issues, we've got a wonderful prayer team. They will pray for you. It will make a difference in your life. But I just urge you today, don't leave here the same. Amen?
There's a dance that's in your children. You've given us the rhythm. Now we're stirring up the head.